Good morning everybody, welcome back to cilinixfxcapital and welcome to this new video right here on Ethereum. We're going to do a full update. We'll stick to the higher time frames, which I think is necessary, and we'll talk a little bit about what happened over the course of last night. Last night was pretty intense, pretty insane, dare I say. Now, to start this video off positive, which I think some of us might need. First of all, I mean, obviously, I hope you're doing great. I mean, this morning when I scrolled through X, I saw a lot of negative sentiment, a lot of people being you know, afraid, having lost a lot of money. We've even seen some suicide notes passing around. So that's definitely very bad. And I know that there's well, we have a very large community, so I know some of you also lost a lot of money. Just remember that even the worst events can be learning events, right? And the only way you can turn what happened overnight potentially into something good is if you learn from it and if you adapt. Then you can turn it into good, and over the long term, you can actually turn it into something good that can make you money as well. How unrealistic that may seem at this point of time, obviously, would it just haven't happened. But to be a little bit positive here technically about Ethereum, I would say Ethereum has actually held up relatively well. Obviously, yesterday the crash was fueled initially by the fundamentals. Fundamentally, the whole, you know, ignition again of the trade war between the United States and China, export controls, 100% tariffs, that really kickstarted it. But with crypto specifically, there was a lack of liquidity, right? There for a lot of altcoins, there just wasn't enough liquidity to stop the selling, especially not on a Friday evening. I mean, I think it being a Friday evening created more problems than potentially could have happened. I mean, yes, it was logical that crypto would dump if you get bad news, but it wasn't logical that we would see a spike down on altcoins on average of 50%. That's crazy. But the thing, what is actually which is actually quite positive about Ethereum right here, is that Ethereum did not spike down that low. We spiked down into 3,440, which is obviously quite low, but it's not as low as something like XRP. XRP dropped down to 1.25. Ethereum spiked down to 3,440 on Binance. On Coinbase, it spiked down to 3,500. Right, those are levels we were at early August. Most altcoins dropped down to levels we haven't seen since 2024, 2023. Right, so that's quite positive. There actually seems to be quite strong buy-side liquidity for Ethereum. So that's good. And I would argue, I mean, right now we are holding support. You can see the price is at 3,800. We're holding this high time frame support between 3,900 and 3,600. This is actually a support we spoke about at the end of September as well as being a strong support. And then outside of that, we can also see that ETH BTC hit that major support we spoke about yesterday and is reacting relatively well to that. Now, ETH BTC is still in a downtrend, right? And I would still say like we've had the largest liquidation we've ever seen. So I would still be, you know, careful, especially given the fact that these bearish fundamentals and this bad news has just started, and we don't know what's going to happen. All right, we don't know what China is going to do. We don't know how it's going to develop. So I would be on the safe side, but given the current fundamentals and especially given the current reaction by Ethereum, a drop down into 3,700, 3,600 to test the buyer conviction, I would say it's quite likely, but from there I do expect a bounce, and I think we can actually remain relatively stable and get a move into 4,000 and 4,100 relatively soon, especially if we see some de-escalation. So no, I mean, I'm cautious here, but if I would have to compare Ethereum to Bitcoin, XRP in the market, for the first time in a while, I'm actually very positive about Ethereum. But those are my thoughts. That's what I think you need to know. So if you do have any questions, let me know down in the comments. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.